Hello, everyone. My name is Katie O'Hara Krebs, and I'm the social media editor for Portal Libraries in the Academy. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Elizabeth Szkirpan, Collections and Discovery Specialist for Harvard Business School's Baker Library. She's here to speak about her article, Library Services Contributing to Institutional Success at R1 Universities, an exploratory mixed source quantitative model. This article can be found on Portal's preprint site in volume 26, number 1, and the article is free to read, and viewers may access it by navigating to the Johns Hopkins Press preprint site for Portal. Elizabeth, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so I wondered if you could share with our viewers and readers what was the inspiration behind your research topic?
Absolutely. I think that we sit at a really fascinating precipice for both higher education and academic libraries. We have a murky future, and that's not to say that we have no future, but we just sit at a really strange time. AI plays a role in that. We certainly see the after effects of COVID. We see the long-term impact of the commodification of education. We see inflation, changing public opinions. And higher education is having to justify itself in ways that it hasn't before. And then this in turn trickles down to academic libraries. We sit on the outlier of university campuses as non-revenue generating units. And that doesn't necessarily translate well to making data-informed decisions at the uppermost administrative level in a university. How do you justify this unit on campus that it typically has a lot of really well educated staff, but increasing year over year costs, and really hard to measure impacts on our academic campuses. So, as librarians, we feel very strongly that we know the work we do is valuable and important. We know that we have a role and that that is really critical to the higher education process. But that's not necessarily going to translate when you're thinking about higher education as more of a business-based model these days. So, as someone who works really heavily with data modeling, as someone who's very passionate about the possibilities in machine learning, this is a knot I really want to help unpick for libraries. I want to help find a way forward that we can help communicate our return on investment, our key performance indicators, but not lose our color and our personality and the anecdote that I think that we bring to these conversations.
As a business librarian, I also appreciated your take on all of this, like doing a deep dive into what you already work with and turning that back on the
Right.
libraries themselves. So thank you. Yeah, amazing.
Sure.
I wonder if you could give us a summary of the article.
Absolutely. So I delve into all of these topics in my article, and really the goal was to try to find a really simple machine learning tactic that we could apply to available data. And in a perfect world, I would love to create a plug and play equation of some sort that libraries could say, in order to support this amount of annual citations for the campus or something to that effect, that we need this many staff members and this much funding to support our collections. But that's really tricky. There's not really robust publicly available data. And then again, how do we take something as complex as library service and translate that into a quantitative number? So there's really a lot of barriers to this age-old question about how libraries communicate their value and their key performance indicators. And there is this tremendous lack of standardization among data, and therefore there's no methodology between libraries. So I started out my article by taking publicly available data sets from sites like iPads and then combining that with some hand scraped data to try and explore the possibilities surrounding quantitative modeling in libraries to help communicate our value. And transparently, I don't really consider this to be an entirely successful application of this data. There was some issues with data quality. There's the issue with data availability. And at this point, the study was really limited just to R1 research libraries, which are not necessarily the libraries struggling the most in our academic environment to communicate their value. But I think that it presents some really exciting possibilities for a path forward. And it's something that I'm continuing to explore and hoping to turn back to over the summer to revisit.
That's wonderful. So, for those who haven't read the article yet, and hopefully they will after listening to our chat today, but to just give readers a little bit of a snippet, what is a big idea? What is the big idea? Or what is one takeaway that you hope that when readers either finish the article or listen to our chat today, what do you want them to kind of hold on to?
Yeah, one thing I really want to emphasize is that while the methodology is imperfect, I think that it does demonstrate that machine learning presents an exciting path forward and that we absolutely could take the data that we produce, we can take the data that is available to us and try to communicate our value in that. I'm not an advocate for taking library data and trying to strip out the color and the anecdote and just turn it into a spreadsheet. I think that the color and the anecdote that we bring to our academies is really valuable and important. But I also understand that the ask right now from our administrators is to communicate our value in these ways. So I think the challenge really is that if we don't have a seat at the table, we need to find a way to construct a chair that works for us and works for our environments, and that this is a possible way to do that. It's not going to be the only way, but there might be an avenue for libraries with math and machine learning to take what we do and communicate that mathematically.
That's wonderful. It's really gives us some food for thought as we move forward in this brave new world that we're in, as
Absolutely.
librarians and in the library world. So thank you again for speaking with me about your article today, Elizabeth.
Of
I
course.
just want to remind that viewers that they can also read this article on the Johns Hopkins Press preprint site for Portal. I hope that we will see more articles from you in Portal, Elizabeth, and I
Hope as
wish you
well.
best. Yeah, I wish you best with the continued research on this.
Absolutely. Thank you again so much for having me.
Yeah, so thank you all for watching today. Keep your eye out for upcoming author interviews. And again, thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thanks.